Hey everyone, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking an absolute game changer in how we manage and author digital experiences. We're talking about Adobe Experience Manager's Universal Editor. Now look, AEM is already a total powerhouse across the industry. But as we all know, the web moves fast, and AEM is evolving right along with it. We're stepping away from those traditional monolithic setups and diving headfirst into incredibly fast, modern architectures. And the Universal Editor? Well, that's the exact tool bridging the gap between where we've been and where the web is going.
Okay, let's dive right into this, because here's the core problem that's been driving the industry a bit crazy for the last few years. Headless architectures are amazing, right? They offer literally blazing fast performance and give developers the total freedom to build for web, mobile, smartwatches, IoT, you name it. But how do you actually visually edit a headless website? For a long time, going headless meant content authors were suddenly stripped of their best tools. They were forced to fill out these rigid, disconnected forms in a back-end database, basically crossing their fingers and guessing what the content would look like once published. I mean, it was kind of like trying to fly a spaceship blindfolded. That whole what you see is what you get experience, it was just completely gone.
So to see how Adobe fixed this, here's our quick roadmap for today. We're going to meet the Universal Editor, compare it to the classic page editor, and then check out its features and extensibility. After that, we'll see how it powers headless architectures, and finally, we'll wrap up with the really exciting stuff, the future with edge delivery.
All right, Section 1. Let's officially meet the Universal Editor.
This introduces a radical new concept to the AEM ecosystem, Editor as a Service. And no, this isn't just some fresh coat of paint on the UI. It's a fully decoupled, modern visual editing interface hosted entirely by Adobe in the cloud. It literally separates the act of content creation from the front-end rendering. So the place where you write your content is no longer hardwired to the code that displays it. Why is that absolutely crucial? Because whether your devs are coding in React, Angular, Next.js, or whatever the framework of the month is, this service brings back true WYSIWYG authoring for any headless experience. It hands the visual canvas right back to the author no matter what tech stack is running under the hood.
Moving on to Section 2. Let's stack up the page editor versus the Universal Editor.
For the last decade or so, the legacy page editor has been our absolute workhorse. But it relies pretty heavily on legacy backend structures. Things like the Java content repository and HTML templating. It basically expects the content and the code to live in the exact same house. The Universal Editor completely flips that script. It uses a totally decoupled architecture that supports any framework, and the interface itself is built on the super snappy, modern React Spectrum UI. Now, a quick aside here. The legacy page editor is absolutely still supported by Adobe for existing traditional sites. But if we're talking about new projects or transitioning to modern front-end frameworks, the Universal Editor is 100% the future. Okay, Section 3, Features and Extensibility. Let's look under the hood. Now, for the developers listening, I know what you're probably thinking. You might be worried that moving to a decoupled system means you have to sacrifice all those robust web content management features. Well, let me assure you, you aren't losing a single thing. And this brilliantly illustrates why. You've got your editable front-end app on the left and your back-end databases like AEM or even other third-party systems on the right. Sitting right there in the middle is the Universal Editor Service, or UES. It acts as this highly secure API bridge that doesn't slow your website down at all. It just quietly listens for your visual changes on the front end and silently writes them right back to the backend repository. And because of that incredibly clever architecture, the actual day-to-day authoring experience is just beautifully simple. Let's walk through it real quick. Step 1, you just open up the Universal Editor interface. Step 2, drop in the URL of your instrumented front-end app. Step 3, you literally just double-click the actual text on the screen you want to edit. Step 4, update it right there in context. And Step 5, securely save your changes. That's it. No more guessing games. You're interacting directly with the final presentation layer, exactly as your customers are going to see it.
It's honestly amazing how seamless this feels in practice. You just pop the remote app's address into the URL bar, and by the way, that can be a local dev server or a remote staging app. Once it loads up, you literally just highlight the text, say a headline about Northern Norway, and edit it straight in line. It feels exactly like you're hacking a live website, but the Universal Editor service is doing all the heavy lifting in the background, routing those updates right back to your database.
But hey, it's way more than just basic text editing. The Universal Editor supercharges traditional capabilities with some seriously powerful extensions built using Adobe App Builder. Right from the editor's header menu, you can trigger complex AEM workflows. You can handle multi-site management, dictating exactly how components inherit traits across your global sites.
You can even tap into generative AI to spin up fresh content variations on the fly right in the Properties panel. Plus, you've got seamless Workfront integration, the ability to manage multiple content drafts, and a visual form rule editor. It basically takes all those heavyweight enterprise features and packs them into a lightweight, snappy front end. Introduced in 2024, this thing was built from the ground up to fully embrace the modern web. Back in the day, customizing dialogues meant you had to write some pretty heavy logic inside legacy UI frameworks. But now, the editor leverages modern JavaScript and these incredibly clean JSON logic schemas to redefine how properties and dialogues behave. For dev teams, creating conditional fields and dynamic dropdowns is just an absolute breeze now. All right, let's move to Section 4 and see how this builds up to powering headless architectures. The real rallying cry of the Universal Editor is front-end for all. It aggressively champions this bring-your-own-app philosophy. And guys, this is a massive win. It means your dev team isn't forced to learn some outdated proprietary language or contort their application to fit heavy SDK constraints just to make the CMS happy. Whether your team lives and breathes React, Next.js, or some custom single-page application framework, they can build the app exactly how they want to. As long as it's instrumented correctly, the Universal Editor just snaps right on, giving authors that critical WYSIWG power without messing up the developer's pure architecture. So how exactly do we make that secure connection happen? Well, it just takes a tiny bit of specific instrumentation. First up, your headless app needs to include the Universal Editor Cores library, which lets the editor securely communicate across domains with your page. Then, the connections are stored as meta tags right in the page's HTML head. By using a specific URN schema, specifically Earn Adobe AUE system, you create a named reference. Think of this URN like a digital name tag. It permanently links the visual block you're looking at on the screen to the hidden database entry back in AEM. It's a wonderfully transparent, standards-based way to wire the front end to the back end. And finally, Section 5, let's talk about the future, edge delivery. So the crucial point here is understanding what Edge Delivery Services, or EDS, actually achieves. EDS completely replaces those traditional heavy publish tiers. Instead, it uses a multi-cloud solution to deliver highly optimized semantic HTML directly to the browser. That HTML is then styled by pure front-end JavaScript and CSS blocks, with the code itself managed via modern CI/CD GitHub workflows. And the result? Guaranteed perfect 100 Lighthouse performance scores. For you, that translates to lightning-fast page loads, skyrocketing SEO rankings, and a buttery smooth user experience that's going to keep your customers seriously engaged. Now, when you build on Edge Delivery Services, you actually get two distinct paths for authoring content. First, there's document-based authoring. This is wild. Authors can literally type out their content in Microsoft SharePoint or Google Docs, and it publishes instantly to the web. Super fast, perfect for simple articles. But when you need to scale up, manage sophisticated layouts, and build out intricate visual block designs, you absolutely need WYSIWYG authoring, and that is exactly where the Universal Editor shines. It provides the ultimate visual interface for orchestrating those high-performance EDS sites. Honestly, having both of these options at your fingertips gives your team absolute superpowers. Wow, we have covered an incredible amount of ground today. We've gone from the rigid constraints of the legacy page editor, crossed the API bridge of the Universal Editor service, and arrived at the blistering speeds of headless apps and edge delivery services. By fully decoupling the authoring interface from the rendering framework, Adobe has basically handed both content creators and developers exactly what they need to thrive in today's digital landscape. The tools are officially here, the performance is undeniable, so I guess the only question left to ask is, are you ready to build the future of content delivery? Thanks so much for hanging out with me for this explain.